The sun was barely rising over the manicured lawns of Willow Creek. Estates when a loud rotor cut through the morning calm. A rescue chopper, emblazoned with bright red and white markings, hovered above the neighborhood. Inside, Captain Alex Moreno checked his instruments, frowning at the unusual security presence below. This wasn't a routine medical evacuation. It was an urgent response. Down on the ground, Karen Block, the HOA president, had already positioned herself in front of the gate. Her perfectly styled hair and designer sunglasses couldn't soften the aura of authority she radiated. Residents watched from behind neatly trimmed hedges, whispering nervously. No one dared cross her. Karen raised a sleek black handgun with practiced precision. "Not today," she said calmly, aiming at the helicopter's landing path. "You're not coming in here." Alex's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ma'am, there's a medical emergency. We need clearance immediately." Karen tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "This community has rules, Captain. No exceptions." Inside the chopper, the team exchanged glances. Time was slipping away. The patient they were transporting, a 6-year-old girl named Emily, was in critical condition. Every second counted. Alex knew negotiations had to be handled delicately. "Ma'am, I understand your position, but a child's life is at stake," Alex implored. "We need to land now. There are paramedics waiting on site." Karen's finger hovered near the trigger, yet she didn't waver. "Rules are rules. Even in emergencies, I make the decisions here." At that moment, a convoy of black SUVs rolled down the street, drawing the attention of the entire neighborhood. The governor had arrived, stepping out with a calm but authoritative presence. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's composure faltered. Slightly, something about the governor's unshakable demeanor seemed to challenge her authority. Alex saw the opening. "Governor, we're dealing with a medical emergency. We need access immediately." The governor nodded firmly, addressing Karen directly. "Ma'am, stand down. Lives are on the line. We cannot negotiate morality with politics." The wind from the rotor blades kicked up, scattering papers and leaves across the driveway. Karen's grip on her weapon tightened. But the realization of the magnitude of the situation, the presence of the state's highest authority, made her pause. The neighbors whispered among themselves, eyes darting between the gun in her hand and the governor's steady gaze. Finally, Karen's knuckles whitened around the gun. The tension was unbearable. Alex and his team could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the neighborhood, holding in suspense. One wrong move could trigger catastrophe, but the governor's calm authority suggested a different outcome was imminent. For the first time that morning, Karen's expression betrayed uncertainty. Karen's finger hovered over the trigger, her body rigid with authority and fear. The chopper hovered closer, rotors slicing through the tension as if echoing the urgency of the situation. The governor's presence had changed the stakes completely. This was no longer a local HOA dispute. It had become a standoff with state-level consequences. The gathered neighbors murmured nervously. Children clung to their parents' hands and joggers froze mid-stride. Every eye was on the unfolding scene. Even the HOA board members seemed frozen, unsure whether to support Karen or step aside. Alex adjusted the microphone in the cockpit. "Ma'am, I need a clear path to land. Lives are at risk. Please step aside." Karen's eyes flicked toward the governor. I have responsibilities here. Rules must be followed. Everyone thinks this is just about a kid, but it's about order." The governor's expression remained calm. "Order is important, Ms. Block, but not at the expense of human life. Step back and let the professionals do their job." Karen's hand trembled slightly. The governor wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening. He was merely stating the facts in a way that pierced her rigid armor of control. Her entire body felt the weight of scrutiny. The neighbors, the media crews arriving unexpectedly, even the chopper crew now watching her reaction through the tinted windows. Alex knew he had to act fast. "Governor, we need clearance now." "She's deteriorating." The governor raised a hand, signaling patience, then turned slightly toward Karen. "This is your choice. Ms. Block, lives hang in the balance. History will remember how you act today." For a tense moment, Karen's mind raced. Every rule she had ever enforced flashed in her head. Yet the image of Emily, helpless and fading, kept piercing through her defenses. The gun shook in her hands as the wind from the rotors tore through the neighborhood, scattering leaves and hats. Finally, a subtle change occurred. Karen's shoulders slumped slightly. She looked away from the governor, then at the approaching chopper. The standoff had broken her composure, leaving a flicker of humanity. "Step back," the governor repeated softly. Karen slowly lowered the gun, her hand trembling. The neighbors exhaled in unison, relief washing over them. Alex maneuvered the chopper down carefully, the rotor wash creating mini tornadoes of debris. The paramedics, already waiting at the edge of the driveway, rushed forward as the chopper touched down. Karen stood aside, watching, her face pale but still defiant in spirit. She had lost the battle, but perhaps she had glimpsed the cost of inflexibility. As Alex and the team unloaded medical equipment and carried Emily onto a stretcher, the governor approached Karen. Not with anger, but with measured authority. Sometimes leadership is knowing when to step back. Today, that choice saved a life. Karen nodded, barely whispering, "I understand." The streets of Willow Creek. Estates were littered with debris. From the chopper's landing, a stark contrast, to the previously immaculate lawns. Karen sat on her porch steps, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, staring at the black SUVs still parked nearby. The governor had left, but his presence lingered, a reminder of authority and perspective. Alex emerged from the ambulance briefing the paramedics, looking around at the shaken residents. "Everyone's safe for now. Thanks to quick decisions," he said, his voice carrying a mix of relief and urgency. Karen's HOA board members approached hesitantly. "Karen, maybe we should reconsider some of our policies," one suggested quietly. She shook her head, staring at the ground. "It's not just policies," she murmured. "It's about control, about making sure everything goes right. But maybe I took it too far." Neighbors began emerging from their homes, cautiously approaching. Some thanked Alex and his team. Others stared at Karen, still processing what had unfolded. She had been a figure of authority moments ago, but now she was humanized, her rigidity cracked by circumstances beyond her control. In the distance, Alex prepared the chopper for departure. "We'll monitor her condition closely," he told the team. "It was touch and go, but she's stable now." Karen looked up as the rotor blades spun to life again. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the realization of how close disaster had been. She reflected on the governor's words. Leadership sometimes meant yielding. The media crews that had quietly arrived began asking questions, but Karen refused to comment. Instead, she turned back to the residents, her expression softer. A murmur of conversation. Rose's neighbors debated the events and the lessons to be learned. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Willow Creek Estates was quiet once more. Karen sat alone, replaying every decision, every hesitation, and every moment of fear. She realized that rules, no matter how strict, could never outweigh human life. Meanwhile, Alex and his team flew into the sunset. Knowing they had done more than rescue a child, they had reminded a community of the fragility and value of life. Karen's block had been defiant, but she had also been transformed, if only slightly, by the confrontation. The events of the morning would echo in Willow Creek. Estates for months to come, a tale of authority, courage, and the sometimes painful lessons that accompany leadership. By the following morning, Willow Creek Estates was buzzing with a mixture of gossip and reflection. Karen walked through her neighborhood, noticing the residents who once regarded her with fear now looked at her with cautious curiosity. She realized the standoff had altered more than just her reputation. It had altered the fabric of the community itself. The HOA board convened in the clubhouse. Karen, still pale from the previous day's ordeal, addressed them. "We need to review our policies," she said slowly. "Not to give up control, but to understand when lives outweigh rules." Her board members nodded, some relieved, others still wary. Karen knew that regaining their trust would require humility, honesty, and a willingness to admit mistakes, a difficult combination for someone so accustomed to wielding authority. News crews broadcast clips of the standoff nationwide. Karen's name trended on social media. Her image split between fearsome HOA, president, and humanized figure who had faced a moral dilemma head-on. Meanwhile, the governor's words lingered in her mind. Leadership, he had said, was knowing when to step back. Karen reflected on that as she walked past the freshly mowed lawns, watching children play freely where chaos had almost erupted. She understood now that authority was meaningless without wisdom, and rules were meaningless if they endangered others. Alex, back at the airbase, reviewed the flight logs. The rescue had been textbook in execution, but it had also been a study in human psychology, patience and negotiation under extreme pressure. He smiled quietly. Another mission accomplished, another life saved. Karen began taking small steps to mend relationships with the residents. Apologies were offered to those she had alienated. Fences mended both literally and figuratively. The incident became a catalyst for change, transforming a rigid, rule-bound community into one that valued both safety and empathy. By evening, Karen stood on her porch watching the sunset. The chopper's shadow had long vanished, but its impact remained. She had faced fear, authority, and her own limitations, and had survived to learn a vital truth. Sometimes, stepping aside is the bravest decision of all. Willow Creek Estates would never forget the day the rescue chopper arrived, and Karen would never forget the lessons she learned from the moment lives hung in the balance. The community, once rigid and intimidating, now held the promise of compassion, understanding, and growth. The echoes of rotor blades, the governor's calm voice, and the terrified child's need would resonate in Karen's mind for years. A stark reminder that true leadership is defined not by power, but by courage, humility, and the ability to act when it truly matters.